Alejandro Montero, a wealthy man in his early 30s, had come into a vast fortune at the tender age of 20 after the devastating loss of his parents in a horrific accident. Despite having access to every luxury imaginable, Alejandro found himself trapped in a world of loneliness and inner desolation. His lavish mansion, located on the serene outskirts of the bustling city, was filled with opulent furnishings and attended by a fleet of servants, yet none of this splendor could soothe the aching emptiness within his soul. One fateful afternoon, as Alejandro navigated the city in his sleek sports car, he caught sight of an elderly woman scavenging through a trash bin. Her frail and weary appearance stirred a profound sense of compassion deep within him. Instinctively, Alejandro pulled over and approached the woman, his heart aching for her plight. If you are not subscribed, I recommend you subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss any videos. "Excuse me, ma'am, is there anything I can do to assist you?" he inquired softly. The woman eyed him with suspicion, but something about Alejandro's sincere gaze reassured her. "My name is Esperanza," she replied in a shaky voice. "I've been homeless for months since being evicted from my apartment. I have nowhere to go and no one to turn to." Alejandro's heart broke at her words. Without a moment's hesitation, he offered her sanctuary in his grand home. "I have an unused garage that could provide you with shelter until you find a better place," he suggested warmly. Overwhelmed by his kindness, Esperanza accepted his offer with tearful gratitude, following him back to his estate. Upon arrival, Alejandro led Esperanza to the spacious garage, which dwarfed any residence she had ever known. It was outfitted with a cozy bed, a small bathroom, and a rudimentary kitchen. Esperanza was astounded by her good fortune and the generosity of this stranger. In the days that followed, Alejandro and Esperanza formed a bond, sharing their stories and lives with one another. Alejandro learned that Esperanza had once been a gifted artist, forced to abandon her craft due to life's harsh realities. Esperanza, in turn, discovered the depth of Alejandro's compassion hidden behind his isolated exterior. Gradually, her presence began to fill the void in Alejandro's heart, teaching him to cherish the simple, beautiful moments in life, like the tranquil glow of a sunset or the comforting warmth of a morning coffee. Alejandro provided Esperanza with the stability and affection she had been yearning for, creating a profound and transformative connection that healed them both. Despite the growing bond between Alejandro and Esperanza, there remained an air of mystery surrounding her past. Alejandro could sense that she was holding something back but chose to respect her silence, believing that in time she would confide in him. Thus, in the garage of his opulent mansion, an unlikely yet beautiful friendship began to flourish between the lonely young millionaire and the destitute elderly woman. They found in each other the missing pieces of their lives, ready to face any challenges together. Weeks had flown by since Esperanza had moved into Alejandro's mansion. She gradually acclimated to her new surroundings and the constant presence of Alejandro in her life. Although he provided every comfort, Esperanza insisted on maintaining the garage herself. Her pride and determination not to become a burden to anyone shone through. For Alejandro, the days with Esperanza were a revelation. He discovered a profound joy in her company that he hadn't anticipated. Despite the significant age difference, they found common ground in their shared passion for art and music. They spent countless hours discussing their favorite painters and composers, with Alejandro continually amazed by Esperanza's extensive knowledge and life experiences. One afternoon, while they sipped tea in the mansion's verdant garden, Esperanza mentioned, almost in passing, that her birthday was nearing. This revelation stirred Alejandro's curiosity about her past, prompting him to take a gentle step toward uncovering her story. "Esperanza, I know you prefer not to delve into your past, but I would love to learn more about you," Alejandro began softly. "Can you tell me about your life before we met?" Esperanza lowered her gaze, enveloped in silence for what felt like an eternity. Alejandro saw the turmoil in her eyes and wondered if he had overstepped. Finally, Esperanza lifted her head and met his concerned gaze. "My life before I met you was far from easy," she began, her voice trembling. "I had to make difficult decisions and endure hardships I never imagined. But that's all behind me now, and I prefer not to dwell on it." Alejandro nodded empathetically. "I understand, Esperanza. I just want you to know that no matter what you faced, I'm here for you. You're an incredible person, and you deserve happiness." Esperanza's eyes filled with gratitude as she squeezed Alejandro's hand. "Thank you, Alejandro. You are a true friend, and I appreciate everything you've done for me. Perhaps one day I'll be ready to share my story with you. But for now, let's cherish the present." At that moment, both Alejandro and Esperanza felt a deeper connection. They understood that while the shadows of the past lingered, the promise of the present and the hope for the future were what truly mattered. Together, they embraced the journey ahead, knowing that they had found not just companionship but a source of strength and solace in each other. Alejandro smiled warmly and gave her hand a gentle squeeze. "Take all the time you need, Esperanza. I'll be here to listen whenever you're ready." Determined to make Esperanza's upcoming birthday unforgettable, Alejandro poured his heart into planning the perfect celebration. He wanted her to feel cherished and appreciated, just as she had made him feel since she came into his life. He spent days meticulously organizing a surprise party, transforming the garage with vibrant balloons and festive garlands. He even prepared her favorite dishes, ensuring every detail was perfect. Using his extensive network, Alejandro managed to track down some of Esperanza's old friends and invited them to the celebration. On the day of her birthday, Alejandro suggested a stroll around the city to keep Esperanza distracted while the final touches were being made. Upon their return to the mansion, Esperanza was greeted with a heartwarming scene that left her utterly speechless. Tears welled up in her eyes as she took in the sight of the beautifully decorated garage and the familiar faces of her friends. "No one has ever done something like this for me," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "You are an angel, Alejandro." Alejandro's heart swelled with joy as he hugged her tightly. "No, Esperanza, you are the angel. You've brought light and happiness into my life, and I wanted to do something special to show you how much you mean to me." The celebration was filled with laughter, dancing, and an abundance of delicious food. Surrounded by friends and loved ones, Esperanza experienced a profound sense of love and appreciation for the first time in a long while. The warmth of the moment enveloped her, making her feel truly blessed. As the evening progressed, Alejandro couldn't shake the curiosity about the secret Esperanza guarded so closely. He understood the importance of giving her space and not pressing her for details, but he couldn't help but wonder what hidden truths lay beneath her serene exterior. Unbeknownst to him, the revelation of Esperanza's past was just around the corner, and it would soon alter the course of their lives in a way neither of them could have anticipated. One quiet morning at Alejandro's mansion, Esperanza woke early as usual and busied herself in the garage, preparing breakfast. Alejandro, worn out from a demanding week at his company, allowed himself the rare luxury of sleeping in. As Esperanza hummed a soft, unfamiliar melody, she seemed lost in a reverie, her face alight with a dreamy expression. Alejandro, observing her from a distance, wondered what memories or thoughts were drifting through her mind but chose not to disturb her peaceful moment. After a delightful breakfast together in the garden, Alejandro excused himself to attend to some pressing matters in his office. Seizing the quiet time, Esperanza decided to finally do something she had been putting off for far too long. She carefully retrieved an old, worn briefcase from under her bed. With trembling hands, she opened it to reveal a sketch pad and some pencils. It had been years since she had drawn, but she felt an irresistible urge to reconnect with her passion. Settling down on the garage floor, Esperanza began to draw. Her initial strokes were tentative and uncertain, but as time passed, her confidence grew. She sketched landscapes from her childhood, portraits of people she had known, and fantastical scenes from her imagination. She was so deeply engrossed in her work that she didn't notice Alejandro had entered the garage. He stood there quietly, captivated by the intensity and emotion in her drawings. He had never seen Esperanza so absorbed in anything, and he was struck by her remarkable ability to bring feelings to life on paper. Suddenly, Esperanza looked up and met Alejandro's gaze. For a brief moment she looked startled, as if she had been caught doing something wrong. But upon seeing the admiration in Alejandro's eyes, she relaxed and offered a shy smile. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to startle you," Alejandro said, stepping closer. "I've never seen you draw before. You're incredibly talented, Esperanza." Esperanza blushed and looked down. "Thank you, Alejandro. It's been so long since I last drew, but I felt it was time to return to it." Alejandro sat beside her, carefully examining the drawings. "These are beautiful, Esperanza. Why did you stop drawing?" Esperanza sighed, a profound sadness crossing her features. She was silent for a few moments, and Alejandro wondered if she would finally open up about her past. "I had to leave many things behind when my life changed," Esperanza said softly. "Drawing was one of them. But now, living here with you, I feel like I can start being myself again and do the things I love." Alejandro reached out and gently took her hand. "I'm glad you feel that way, Esperanza. You deserve to be happy and to pursue your passions. Your drawings are a gift, and I'm honored to witness them." Tears welled up in Esperanza's eyes as she squeezed Alejandro's hand. "Thank you, Alejandro. You've given me a second chance at life, and I'm grateful for every moment." As they sat together, surrounded by her sketches, the bond between them grew even stronger. They realized that through each other's support and companionship, they could heal and rediscover the joys that life had to offer. In that shared space of creativity and understanding, they found not only solace but also the courage to face the future together, ready for whatever challenges and revelations might come their way. Alejandro smiled and took her hand, feeling a deep sense of connection. "I'm so glad to hear that, Esperanza. I want you to know that you will always have my support in whatever you decide to do." Esperanza returned his smile and gave his hand a warm squeeze. "Thank you, Alejandro. You are a good friend." They spent the rest of the afternoon immersed in conversation about art, life, and their journeys. Alejandro shared stories of his lonely childhood, how he had found solace in music and painting, and the struggles he faced growing up. Esperanza, in turn, recounted tales of the places she had visited and the fascinating people she had met throughout her life. Despite their deepening trust, Esperanza kept the darker aspects of her past to herself. Alejandro sensed there were secrets she wasn't ready to reveal but chose not to push her. He knew that in time she would open up to him. Until then, he cherished her company and was determined to support her in any way he could. Little did Alejandro know that the truth about Esperanza's past was about to unveil itself in an unexpected and life-altering way. This revelation would lead them both on a journey filled with emotional challenges and profound discoveries. Inspired by Esperanza's hidden talent, Alejandro couldn't shake the idea of helping her rekindle her passion for art. He recognized that she had sacrificed much in her life and was determined to help her rediscover the joy and fulfillment she once knew. In the days that followed, Alejandro delved into researching Esperanza's history. Utilizing his extensive network and resources, he scoured the internet and city archives for any information about her. What he found left him astonished. Esperanza had been a celebrated painter in her youth, her work displayed in some of the most prestigious galleries in the country. Her art was highly regarded by critics and collectors alike, and she had been on the path to a brilliant career in the art world. But over 2 decades ago, Esperanza had vanished from the public eye. Her sudden disappearance from the art scene puzzled many, with rumors swirling about personal troubles or a lost passion for painting. Her name faded into obscurity, and her once promising career was forgotten. Alejandro was captivated by Esperanza's story. What could have driven such a talented artist to abandon her career and end up living on the streets, destitute and alone? The next morning, Alejandro decided to share his discoveries with Esperanza. As they sat in the garden, he gently broached the subject. "Esperanza, I hope you don't mind, but I've been looking into your past. I found out that you were a renowned painter. Your work was extraordinary, and you had a brilliant career ahead of you. What happened? Why did you leave it all behind?" Esperanza's eyes widened in surprise, and she looked away, tears welling up. After a moment of silence, she finally spoke. "Alejandro, there are things in my past that are too painful to relive, but since you have been so kind to me, I owe you the truth." She took a deep breath and began to share her story. "I was at the height of my career when tragedy struck. I lost my husband and daughter in a car accident. The grief was unbearable, and I couldn't find the strength to continue painting. Every stroke of the brush reminded me of the life I had lost. I spiraled into depression and, eventually, lost everything. I became homeless, wandering the streets with no purpose or hope." Alejandro's heart ached for her. "I'm so sorry, Esperanza. I can't imagine the pain you must have gone through. But you are not alone anymore. You have a friend who cares deeply for you, and I will do everything in my power to help you find joy again." With renewed determination, Alejandro set out to reignite Esperanza's passion for art. He organized a private exhibition of her old works and invited art critics, collectors, and friends. The night of the exhibition, Esperanza stood in the center of the room, surrounded by her masterpieces, feeling a sense of pride and hope she hadn't felt in years. As the evening progressed, Alejandro watched as Esperanza's face lit up with each compliment and word of encouragement. The dark shadows of her past seemed to lift, replaced by the vibrant light of renewed purpose. It was the beginning of a new chapter for Esperanza, one filled with hope, creativity, and the unbreakable bond of friendship she shared with Alejandro. Together they faced the future with a newfound strength, ready to embrace whatever challenges and joys lay ahead. Alejandro and Esperanza had discovered not only the healing power of art, but also the transformative power of friendship and support. Determined to uncover the truth, Alejandro mustered the courage to speak to Esperanza about his recent discoveries. One peaceful afternoon, while they sipped tea in the garden, he gently broached the subject. "Esperanza, there's something I need to ask you," he began softly. "I've been looking into your past, and I discovered that you were a renowned painter in your youth. What happened to make you stop painting?" Esperanza remained silent, her gaze fixed on the distant horizon. Alejandro could see the turmoil in her eyes and wondered if he had made a mistake bringing up the past. With a heavy sigh, Esperanza turned to him, sadness etched on her face. "It's a long and painful story, Alejandro, one I've tried to bury for many years." Alejandro reached out and took her hand warmly. "I understand if you don't want to talk about it, Esperanza, but please know that I'm here for you, no matter what. If you ever feel ready to share your story, I'll be here to listen." Esperanza smiled gratefully. "Thank you, Alejandro. You are a true friend. Maybe someday I'll find the strength to tell you everything, but for now, I'd rather focus on the present." Alejandro nodded with empathy. "Take all the time you need, Esperanza. I want you to know that I believe in your talent, and I want to help you rekindle your passion for painting. If you'll let me, I'd like to support you in any way I can to see you shine again as the incredible artist you are." Tears welled up in Esperanza's eyes. "Would you do that for me, Alejandro? After everything you've already done?" Alejandro smiled warmly. Of course I would, Esperanza. You are an extraordinary person, and you deserve the opportunity to pursue what you love. Let me help you, please. Esperanza nodded, her excitement palpable. All right, Alejandro, I accept your help, but you must understand that it won't be easy. It's been so many years since I last painted, and I'm not sure if I can still do it. Alejandro's smile widened. I have faith in you, Esperanza. We'll take it one step at a time, and I'll be with you every step of the way. You don't know how much it means to me that you believe in me in this way. With Alejandro's unwavering support, Esperanza felt a renewed sense of hope. The path ahead might be challenging, but for the first time in years, she felt ready to face it. Alejandro's belief in her abilities gave her the courage to start anew, and together, they embarked on a journey of rediscovery and healing. In each other's company, they found the strength to confront the past and embrace a future filled with creativity, joy, and the unbreakable bond of friendship. From that moment on, Alejandro dedicated himself wholeheartedly to helping Esperanza revive her passion for painting. He bought her the finest materials and canvases, transforming a room in the mansion into a bright and inviting studio. Esperanza began to spend countless hours in this sanctuary, painting and drawing with a fervor she hadn't felt in years. Initially, her brushstrokes were hesitant and unsure, but gradually, her confidence returned, and her art flourished once more. Alejandro often watched her work in silence, mesmerized by her talent and the sheer dedication she poured into each piece. He knew that the journey ahead was long, but he was committed to supporting her every step of the way. What Alejandro couldn't foresee was that Esperanza's re-entry into the art world would trigger a series of unforeseen events, thrusting them into a whirlwind of secrets and startling revelations. Several weeks had passed since Esperanza began painting again, and Alejandro noticed a remarkable transformation in her. She seemed lighter, more joyous, as if she had rediscovered a long-lost purpose. One sunny afternoon, while Esperanza was deeply engrossed in a new painting, Alejandro entered the studio with an exciting proposition. Esperanza, I have a surprise for you, he said, a broad smile lighting up his face. I've spoken with some friends in the art community about your incredible talent. They are very interested in your work and have asked if you would consider participating in a local exhibition. Esperanza was stunned. It had been years since she had shown her work to the public, and the prospect filled her with both fear and exhilaration. I don't know, Alejandro, she responded, her voice trembling. It's been so long since my last exhibition. What if they don't like my work? What if I can't meet their expectations? Alejandro moved closer and enveloped her in a reassuring hug. Esperanza, you are an extraordinary artist. Your work is beautiful and evocative. I do not doubt that people will love it. But even if they don't, what matters is that you find joy and fulfillment in what you do. Esperanza wiped away her tears, a smile breaking through. You're right, Alejandro. I've hidden my talent for too long. It's time for it to shine once again. I agree to participate in the exhibition. Alejandro's excitement was palpable. That's fantastic. I know it will be a tremendous success. Don't worry about the logistics, I'll handle everything. You just focus on creating your masterpieces. Over the next few weeks, Esperanza threw herself into preparing for the exhibition with unbridled passion. She spent long hours in the studio, meticulously crafting each piece. Alejandro was her constant support, bringing her meals when she forgot to eat, and offering words of encouragement when she felt overwhelmed. One evening, as she put the final touches on a particularly evocative painting, Esperanza paused to reflect on the incredible journey she had embarked upon. She felt a sense of pride and accomplishment that had been absent for years. Alejandro's unwavering belief in her had reignited her artistic spirit, and she was determined to honor that faith. The day of the exhibition arrived, and the gallery was abuzz with anticipation. Esperanza's paintings, each a testament to her talent and resilience, adorned the walls. Alejandro stood by her side, his heart swelling with pride and admiration. As the doors opened and guests began to filter in, Esperanza felt a surge of anxiety quickly replaced by a wave of gratitude. The evening was a triumph. Her work was met with acclaim, and the room buzzed with conversations about the profound emotion and beauty in her art. But amid the celebrations, Alejandro couldn't shake the feeling that the night's success was just the beginning. He sensed that Esperanza's return to the art world would uncover deeper truths and lead them both into uncharted territories, filled with both challenges and rewards. As they basked in the glow of the evening's achievements, they knew that together they could face whatever came their way, bound by the unbreakable bond of friendship and mutual respect. Finally, the day of the exhibition arrived. Esperanza felt a mixture of nerves and excitement as she prepared to face her past and confront her fears. She knew she had Alejandro's unwavering support, which gave her the strength to move forward. As they entered the bustling gallery, Esperanza gasped at the sheer number of attendees. Art critics, collectors, and enthusiasts filled the room, admiring the works on display. Esperanza shyly made her way to her section, where her paintings hung prominently on the wall. To her astonishment, a large crowd had gathered around her works, engaged in animated discussions. "These are extraordinary," one woman exclaimed. "The way she captures light and movement is simply breathtaking." And the emotions conveyed through the colors and forms, a man added. "It's as if you can feel what the artist was experiencing at that very moment." Tears welled up in Esperanza's eyes. After years of self-doubt and fear, she was finally receiving the recognition she had long deserved. Alejandro walked over and embraced her proudly. "You did it, Esperanza. You're shining like the star you are." Esperanza smiled and hugged him back. "Thank you, Alejandro. None of this would have been possible without you." Just when Esperanza thought the evening was perfect, a man approached her with a look of surprise. "Esperanza, is that you?" he asked. "It's me, Ernesto. Don't you remember? We were classmates in art school years ago." Esperanza froze. Ernesto had been one of her closest friends during her youth, but had also witnessed some of her darkest moments. "Ernesto, I didn't expect to see you here," she said, her voice trembling. Ernesto smiled warmly. "I know it's been a long time, but when I saw your name on the list of artists, I had to come see you. We have a lot to catch up on, Esperanza." Esperanza glanced at Alejandro with concern. Ernesto held pieces of her past that could threaten the new life she had built. What secrets did he carry, and how would they impact everything she had achieved so far? The exhibition was a resounding success. Esperanza's works received praise from critics and collectors alike, and many pieces sold for impressive prices. Despite the joy she felt, she couldn't shake the unease brought on by her encounter with Ernesto. She knew he possessed knowledge about her past that could jeopardize her newfound happiness. Later that night, as the gallery emptied and the excitement of the evening began to fade, Alejandro noticed Esperanza's pensive mood. "Is everything all right, Esperanza?" he asked gently. She sighed, looking down. "Alejandro, there are things about my past that I haven't told you. Ernesto was a close friend during my younger years, but he also knows about some of the darkest periods of my life. I'm afraid of what might come to light." Alejandro took her hands in his gaze steady and reassuring. "Whatever it is, we'll face it together. Your past doesn't define who you are now. You're an incredible artist and an even more incredible person. Nothing can change that." Esperanza felt a wave of relief wash over her. With Alejandro by her side, she felt stronger, ready to confront whatever challenges lay ahead. She knew that together they could face any secrets from her past and build a future filled with hope, creativity, and love. The days following the exhibition were a whirlwind of emotions. Esperanza's work continued to receive accolades, and she felt a renewed sense of purpose. However, the looming conversation with Ernesto hung over her like a shadow. When they finally met, Ernesto revealed the truth about her past struggles, shedding light on the events that had driven her away from the art world. Through painful yet cathartic conversations, Esperanza began to heal, confronting the pain and embracing her journey. With Alejandro's support, Esperanza realized that her past was a part of her, but it didn't have to dictate her future. She chose to use her experiences as a source of strength and inspiration, both in her art and in her life. Together, she and Alejandro faced each new day with courage, ready to embrace the future they were building together. Alejandro, noticing Esperanza's concern, decided to invite Ernesto to dinner at the mansion so they could have a private conversation. Although nervous, Esperanza knew it was time to confront her past once and for all. During dinner, Ernesto shared stories about his life after art school. He had become an art critic for various magazines and newspapers and had closely followed Esperanza's career before her disappearance. "I always knew you had a special talent," Esperanza Ernesto said admiringly. "Your works were unique and moving. I was certain you would go far in the art world." Esperanza smiled sadly. "Thank you, Ernesto. But as you know, things didn't turn out as I had hoped." Ernesto nodded. "I always wondered what happened to you. Many speculated that you had a nervous breakdown or something." Esperanza lowered her gaze. "It wasn't a nervous breakdown, Ernesto. It was something much worse." Alejandro took her hand affectionately. "Esperanza, you don't have to talk about it if you're not ready. We'll understand." But Esperanza shook her head. "No, Alejandro, it's time for me to face my past, and I want you both to know the truth." Taking a deep breath, she began to recount the events that led to her disappearance over 20 years ago. Esperanza had been in a relationship with a man named Ricardo, an art collector who charmed her with his charisma and deep knowledge of the art world. Unbeknownst to her, Ricardo was involved in shady dealings, using their relationship to sell counterfeit artwork to unsuspecting collectors. When Esperanza discovers the truth, she confronts Ricardo and threatens to expose him. Unwilling to lose his illicit business, Ricardo decided to take drastic measures. One night, while Esperanza slept, Ricardo broke into her apartment and brutally attacked her. Traumatized and terrified, Esperanza managed to escape but was too afraid to return to the art world. She went into hiding, fearing that Ricardo would find her and finish what he had started. Alejandro and Ernesto listened with horror and compassion, unable to believe that someone could harm such a sweet and talented person. "Esperanza, I'm so sorry," Ernesto said, tears welling up in his eyes. "I had no idea what you had endured, but I'm here for you, whatever you need." Alejandro nodded, his voice firm with determination. "And so am I, Esperanza. I promise no one will ever hurt you again. I will protect you with my life if necessary." Esperanza smiled gratefully, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Thank you, Alejandro. Thank you, Ernesto. Your support means everything to me right now." Just when they thought the worst was behind them, Ernesto revealed something that sent chills down their spines. "Esperanza, there's something else you need to know," he said earnestly. "Ricardo is here in town, and I believe he's looking for you." A tense silence fell over the room. Esperanza's face paled as the fear she had lived with for years threatened to engulf her once more. Alejandro's grip on her hand tightened, his resolve unwavering. "We won't let him get near you," Esperanza, Alejandro said firmly. "We'll take every precaution necessary. You are safe with us." Ernesto nodded in agreement. "We need to inform the authorities and make sure you're protected. Ricardo must be stopped." With Alejandro and Ernesto by her side, Esperanza felt a renewed strength. She had faced unimaginable horrors, but she was no longer alone. Together, they devised a plan to ensure her safety and confront Ricardo, bringing an end to the fear that had shadowed her life for so long. In the days that followed, Alejandro and Ernesto worked tirelessly to secure Esperanza's protection, enlisting the help of friends and authorities. Esperanza, though frightened, found solace in the unwavering support of the two men who had become her pillars of strength. The encounter with Ricardo, when it finally came, was fraught with tension and emotion. But Esperanza stood firm, drawing courage from Alejandro and Ernesto's presence. Confronting Ricardo allowed her to reclaim her life and her art, leaving the shadows of her past behind and stepping into a future filled with hope, love, and creativity. Esperanza felt her blood run cold. After so many years, her worst nightmare was on the brink of becoming reality. What would Ricardo do when he found her? How could she possibly face him after everything she had endured? The news of Ricardo's presence in town left Esperanza in a state of shock. After years of running from her past, it seemed it had finally caught up with her. Alejandro, seeing the terror in her eyes, took decisive action. He hired a security team to monitor the mansion around the clock and ensured that Esperanza was never left alone. Yet, despite these measures, Esperanza couldn't shake the feeling that Ricardo was closing in on her. Her nights were plagued with nightmares of being chased down dark alleys, waking up screaming and drenched in sweat. Alejandro did everything within his power to comfort her and make her feel safe, but he knew the only way to truly dispel her fear to confront Ricardo directly. One day, as Esperanza worked in her studio, Alejandro received an urgent call from Ernesto. He had discovered that Ricardo was planning to attend an upcoming art auction in town, where one of his forged works was rumored to be sold. Alejandro knew what had to be done. He decided to attend the auction with Esperanza and Ernesto, intending to confront Ricardo publicly. When they arrived at the auction, Esperanza was visibly trembling. The thought of facing Ricardo after so many years filled her with dread. However, with Alejandro and Ernesto by her side, she found the strength to press on. Together, they entered the auction room and waited for Ricardo's arrival. Finally, after several tense minutes, Ricardo appeared. He was as elegant and charismatic as ever, seemingly untouched by time. But his demeanor changed drastically when he saw Esperanza. His eyes burned with fury and contempt as he approached her with a determined stride. Well, look who decided to show up after all these years," Ricardo sneered. "The great artist Esperanza, who vanished without a trace. What brings you here, my dear? Come to beg for my forgiveness." Esperanza felt a wave of nausea but stood her ground. "No, Ricardo. I came to confront you and hold you accountable for the harm you've done to me and all those you deceived with your counterfeit works." Ricardo laughed derisively. "What are you talking about, Esperanza? I did you a favor by taking you out of the art world. You were too naive and weak to survive. You should be grateful to me." Alejandro, unable to contain his anger any longer, stepped forward and fixed Ricardo with a steely gaze. "Listen to me, Ricardo. Esperanza is one of the strongest and bravest people I have ever known. She's endured things you can't even fathom and has emerged stronger. Don't you dare belittle her ever again." The room fell silent, the tension palpable. Ricardo's sneer faltered, and for a moment, uncertainty flickered in his eyes. But his arrogance quickly resurfaced. "And who are you to lecture me?" he spat. "You think you can protect her? You're nothing compared to what I can do." Alejandro stood his ground, unwavering. "I am someone who cares deeply for Esperanza and will do whatever it takes to protect her. You will not harm her again. We have already informed the authorities about your activities, and they are watching you." Esperanza, emboldened by Alejandro's support, stepped closer to Ricardo. "You may have caused me pain in the past, Ricardo, but I will not let you control my future. Your days of deceit and manipulation are over." Ricardo's face twisted with rage, but before he could respond, security personnel intervened, escorting him out of the building. The auction attendees, initially shocked by the confrontation, began to murmur in support of Esperanza. In the days that followed, the news of Ricardo's arrest spread. His criminal activities were exposed, and justice finally caught up with him. Esperanza felt a sense of liberation she hadn't experienced in years. With Ricardo no longer a threat, she could fully embrace her life and her art. Alejandro and Ernesto remained by her side, their unwavering support giving her the strength to move forward. Esperanza's return to the art world was celebrated, not just for her talent but for her resilience and courage. Together, they faced the future with hope and determination, knowing that the bond they shared was unbreakable. With Alejandro's love and Ernesto's friendship, Esperanza found the peace she had long sought. Her paintings, now infused with her journey of overcoming darkness, resonated deeply with audiences, and she became an inspiration to many. The past, once a source of pain, had transformed into a testament to her strength and the power of true friendship and love. Ricardo glared at Alejandro. "And who are you? Her new boyfriend? Don't make me laugh. Esperanza has always been a loser and always will be, no matter how many men defend her." But Ernesto stepped forward, his voice steady and resolute. "You're wrong, Ricardo. Esperanza is a talented artist and a wonderful person, and today, in front of everyone present, we are going to expose your lies and deceit." Ernesto then pulled out a folder brimming with documents and photos, laying them out for all to see. They contained undeniable proof of the forged artworks Ricardo had sold over the years and detailed his fraudulent methods used to deceive collectors and museums. Ricardo blanched at the sight of the damning evidence but tried to maintain his composure. "That's a lie. I've never forged anything. These so-called proofs are fabricated." But the crowd was not convinced. One by one, they began accusing him of fraud and demanding restitution for the money he had stolen. Cornered and desperate, Ricardo tried to flee, but security guards intercepted him. Moments later, the police arrived and arrested him, leading him away in handcuffs. Watching Ricardo being taken away, Esperanza felt an immense weight lift from her shoulders. After years of living in fear and anguish, she could finally breathe freely. Alejandro embraced her tightly, whispering in her ear, "You did it, Esperanza. You faced your worst nightmare and emerged victorious. I am so proud of you." Tears of relief and joy filled Esperanza's eyes. "I couldn't have done it without you, Alejandro. You gave me the strength to face my past. Thank you for believing in me." Ernesto joined them, enveloping them in a warm embrace. "I'm honored to have been part of this, Esperanza. I always knew you were special, and today you proved it again." Esperanza smiled, hugging her friends tightly. She knew the road ahead would still have its challenges, but with Alejandro and Ernesto by her side, she felt ready to face anything. With her heart full of hope and love, she took the first step toward a new life free from fear and deceit, a life where her talent could shine, and where she would never be alone again. Following Ricardo's arrest, Esperanza felt liberated. For the first time in many years, she could envision a future without fear. Alejandro and Ernesto were her constant pillars of support, encouraging her to move forward. Together, they began planning the next chapter of Esperanza's life, finding her family. Esperanza had confided in them that after fleeing from Ricardo, she had lost all contact with her daughter. She had left her in the care of a friend, but had gradually lost track of her over the years. Now, with Alejandro's resources and connections, Esperanza had a real chance to reunite with her daughter and mend the long-lost bond. Alejandro's network proved invaluable. Through his contacts and some detective work, they traced Esperanza's daughter, now a young woman, living in a neighboring city. The day of their reunion was filled with nervous anticipation. Alejandro and Ernesto accompanied Esperanza to meet her daughter, offering the support she needed. When mother and daughter finally came face to face, it was a moment of overwhelming emotion. Tears flowed freely as they embraced, the years of separation and heartache dissolving in that instant. They spent hours talking, catching up on lost time, and rebuilding their relationship. Esperanza felt an incredible sense of fulfillment. She had reclaimed her life, confronted her past, and was now reunited with her daughter. With Alejandro and Ernesto's unwavering support, she knew she could face any future challenge with courage and grace. As Esperanza looked toward the future, she felt a deep sense of gratitude. The love and support she received had transformed her life, allowing her to rediscover her passion for art and heal old wounds. Together, they planned new exhibitions and projects, ensuring that her talent would continue to inspire and touch the lives of many. In the end, Esperanza's journey was not just about overcoming fear and pain, but about the power of friendship, love, and resilience. She had found her strength and voice, and with Alejandro and Ernesto by her side, she was ready to embrace the future with hope and confidence. The search was not easy. It had been more than 20 years since Esperanza had last seen her daughter, and she had no idea where she might be now. But Alejandro was determined. He hired a team of private investigators to follow any leads they could find and spent countless hours sifting through files and records. Finally, after several weeks of relentless searching, Alejandro received a call that took his breath away. One of the investigators had found Esperanza's daughter, living in a small town several hours away. Alejandro rushed to tell Esperanza, who could hardly believe her ears. After so many years of uncertainty and pain, she was finally on the verge of reuniting with her daughter. Together, Alejandro and Esperanza traveled to the town where her daughter lived. It was a quaint, peaceful place, surrounded by mountains and forests. As they arrived at the given address, Esperanza's heart raced. How would her daughter react to seeing her after so many years? Would she forgive her for leaving? Alejandro took her hand and gave it a reassuring squeeze. "Everything will be all right, Esperanza. Your daughter loves you, and I'm sure she'll be happy to see you." With her heart in her throat, Esperanza knocked on the door. Seconds felt like an eternity until the door finally opened, and there stood her daughter. She had grown into a beautiful woman, but Esperanza recognized her instantly. "Mom," her daughter said in a trembling voice, as if she couldn't believe her eyes. Esperanza couldn't hold back her tears. "Yes, my love, it's me," her daughter threw herself into Esperanza's arms, crying and laughing simultaneously. Esperanza hugged her tightly, her heart overflowing with love and happiness. They spent hours talking and catching up. Esperanza's daughter shared her life story, her work as a teacher, and her own family. Esperanza, in turn, recounted everything that had happened to her, from her escape from Ricardo to her rediscovery of art, all thanks to Alejandro's help. It was a moment of healing and reconciliation for both of them. After so many years of separation, they could finally be a family again. Alejandro watched from a corner, a smile on his lips. He knew he had played a crucial role in Esperanza's recovery, and he was happy to have helped her find the peace she so desperately needed. Yet there was still one last secret to reveal, one that would change Alejandro and Esperanza's lives forever. After the emotional reunion with her daughter, Esperanza and Alejandro returned to the mansion, their hearts brimming with happiness and hope for the future. They decided that Esperanza's daughter and her family would move in with them, allowing them to make up for lost time and create new memories together. Alejandro was thrilled at the prospect of a larger family and immediately set about preparing everything for their arrival. He had several rooms in the mansion remodeled and hired a team of decorators to fill them with color and life. As the days passed, the mansion buzzed with activity. Esperanza's daughter and her family settled in, bringing warmth and joy to the house. They spent their days exploring the beautiful estate, sharing meals and telling stories late into the night. Esperanza felt a sense of fulfillment she hadn't known in years, surrounded by her loved ones and supported by Alejandro's unwavering care. However, one evening, as they sat together in the cozy living room, Alejandro decided it was time to share his secret. With Esperanza and her daughter listening intently, he began to speak. "There's something I need to tell you both," he said, his voice steady but emotional. "It's about my family." Alejandro revealed that he had been searching for his own family for years. As a child, he had been separated from his younger sister during a tumultuous period in their lives. He had never given up hope of finding her, and his dedication to helping Esperanza reunite with her daughter had been inspired by his longing for family. Esperanza took Alejandro's hand, her eyes filled with understanding and compassion. "We'll find her, Alejandro. Just as you helped me, we'll find your sister." With renewed determination, they began a new search, this time for Alejandro's sister. It was a journey filled with hope, love, and the unbreakable bond of their growing family. Through their combined strength and support, they faced the future together, ready to overcome any obstacle and embrace the blessings that lay ahead. In the end, Esperanza's journey of rediscovery and Alejandro's quest for family intertwined, creating a powerful testament to resilience, love, and the unwavering support of those we hold dear. Their lives, once marked by loss and fear, were now filled with hope and the promise of a brighter future. Esperanza spent hours in her studio, painting and creating new works of art. With her daughter back in her life and having confronted her past, she felt a newfound freedom and passion in her expression. Yet, as the days passed, Alejandro noticed something unsettling in Esperanza's behavior. Occasionally, he would find her staring into the void with a melancholic expression, as if she were haunted by painful memories. Despite his attempts to talk to her about it, Esperanza always diverted the conversation or insisted it was nothing important. One day, while they were sitting in the garden, Esperanza decided to reveal the truth. "There is something I have never told you, Alejandro," she began, her voice trembling. "Something about my past that I have kept hidden for many years." Alejandro looked at her with concern, remaining silent to give her the time she needed to find the right words. "When I was young, before I met Ricardo, I was married to a wonderful man," Esperanza continued. "His name was Gabriel, and he was the love of my life." Alejandro felt a pang of jealousy at hearing those words, but he quickly suppressed it. He understood that Esperanza had a life before him, and it was natural that she had loved others. "Gabriel and I were very happy together," Esperanza said. "He was my biggest supporter and my best friend. But then, one day, everything changed." She took a deep breath before continuing. "Gabriel died in a car accident just before I met Ricardo. It was the hardest moment of my life, and I could never fully get over his loss." Alejandro felt his heartache at her words, unable to imagine the pain she had endured. "But there is something else, Alejandro," Esperanza said, looking into his eyes. "Something I've kept secret all these years." Alejandro watched her expectantly, unsure of what she would say next. "Gabriel didn't die in a car accident," Esperanza revealed. "He was killed by Ricardo." Alejandro gasped, struggling to comprehend the enormity of what she had just disclosed. "Ricardo was obsessed with me, and he couldn't stand the idea of me being with another man," Esperanza explained. "So he decided to get rid of Gabriel to have me all to himself." Esperanza burst into tears, overwhelmed by the painful memories. Alejandro held her tightly, trying to offer comfort. "I'm so sorry, Esperanza," he whispered. "I can't imagine what you've been through, but I want you to know that I'm here for you, and I will never leave you alone." Esperanza looked up at him with tear-filled eyes. "There's something else you need to know, Alejandro. Something I have kept hidden, even from my daughter." Alejandro listened intently, not knowing what to expect. Gabriel was not only my husband, Esperanza finally said. He was also your father, Alejandro. But Alejandro's mind reeled with shock and disbelief. My father, he echoed, struggling to process the revelation. Esperanza nodded, her eyes filled with sorrow and love. Yes, Alejandro, you are my son. The weight of her words hung in the air as Alejandro tried to grasp the magnitude of this revelation. His emotions were a whirlwind of shock, confusion, and a burgeoning sense of connection. All these years, Esperanza continued, her voice breaking. I kept the truth hidden to protect you. I feared that Ricardo would harm you if he knew the truth. Alejandro felt a surge of protectiveness toward Esperanza. You did what you had to do, he said softly. And now we can face this together. The bond between them grew even stronger as they navigated this newfound understanding. Esperanza's daughter, now knowing the full truth, welcomed Alejandro into their family with open arms. Together they began to heal from the wounds of the past, finding solace in the love and support they shared. The days that followed were filled with new beginnings. Alejandro, Esperanza, and their family moved forward, united by the strength of their connection and the resilience of their spirits. Esperanza continued to paint, her work now infused with the depth of her experiences and the hope of a brighter future. With each passing day, the mansion became a sanctuary of love, creativity, and healing. Alejandro and Esperanza, now mother and son, faced the world with renewed courage, knowing that they had each other and the unbreakable bond of family. Alejandro froze as he listened to Esperanza's words. He couldn't believe what he was hearing. Gabriel, Esperanza's late husband, was his father. What are you saying? Esperanza stammered Alejandro, trying to process the information. How could Gabriel possibly be my father? Esperanza took Alejandro's hands in hers and looked into his eyes tenderly. I know it's hard to believe, Alejandro, but it's the truth. Gabriel and I had a son together, a boy we loved with all our hearts. But when Gabriel died, Ricardo threatened to hurt our baby if I didn't stay away from him. Tears began to roll down Esperanza's cheeks as she continued her story. I had no choice but to leave our son in the care of a foster family. I knew he would be safe with them, away from Ricardo's evil, but I never stopped thinking about him, not a single day. Alejandro felt the world stop around him. All his life, he had believed that his parents had died in an accident when he was little. He had never imagined the truth to be so different, so painful. Why? Why didn't you ever tell me before? Esperanza asked Alejandro in a trembling voice. Why did you keep this secret for so many years? Esperanza looked down, ashamed. I was afraid, Alejandro, afraid that Ricardo would make good on his threat if he ever discovered the truth. And then, when I met you and saw in you the same goodness and nobility that was in Gabriel, I couldn't bear the thought of losing you too. Alejandro was silent for a few moments, trying to assimilate everything Esperanza had told him. He felt a mixture of emotions: sadness for the loss of a father he never knew, anger towards Ricardo for taking away his chance to grow up with his real family, and a deep love and gratitude towards Esperanza for protecting him all these years. Finally, Alejandro wrapped his arms around Esperanza and hugged her tightly. Thank you, Esperanza, he whispered in her ear. Thank you for giving me life, for protecting me, for loving me as only a mother can. Esperanza sobbed into Alejandro's shoulder, feeling a huge weight lift from her heart. At last, after so many years of secrets and lies, she could be completely honest with her son. Forgive me for not telling you sooner, Alejandro, Esperanza said through tears. I know I don't deserve your forgiveness, but I want you to know that I love you with all my heart and that you have always been and always will be my son. Alejandro kissed Esperanza's forehead tenderly. I have nothing to forgive you for, Mom. I understand why you did what you did, and I thank you for allowing me to have a happy and fulfilling life, despite everything. With the truth finally out, Alejandro and Esperanza felt a renewed bond between them. They spent hours talking about Gabriel, sharing memories, and filling in the gaps in their shared history. Alejandro learned about the father he never knew and discovered that he had inherited Gabriel's love for art and his compassionate nature. As the days passed, Alejandro began to feel a sense of peace and closure. He had found his mother and uncovered the truth about his past. Esperanza, too, felt a sense of relief and happiness she hadn't experienced in years. She continued to paint with even greater fervor, her works now reflecting the deep emotional journey she had undergone. Their family continued to grow closer, with Esperanza's daughter and her family becoming an integral part of their lives. The mansion, once a place of solitude, was now filled with laughter, love, and creativity. Alejandro and Esperanza, along with their newly reunited family, faced the future with hope and determination. They decided to hold a special exhibition showcasing Esperanza's latest works, celebrating not only her artistic talent but also the strength and resilience of their family. The event was a resounding success, with visitors moved by the powerful emotions captured in Esperanza's paintings. At the end of the night, as they stood together in the gallery, Alejandro took Esperanza's hand and spoke from the heart. "Mom, I am so proud of you. You have shown incredible courage and strength, and I am honored to be your son. Together we have overcome so much, and I know that with our family by our side we can face anything." Esperanza smiled, tears of joy in her eyes. "Thank you, Alejandro. I am equally proud of you. You have been my rock, my inspiration, and my reason to keep going. I love you, my son." As they embraced, they knew that their journey was far from over. There would be challenges ahead, but they also knew that they would face them together, strengthened by their love and the unbreakable bond of family. And so, with hearts full of hope and gratitude, they looked forward to a future filled with endless possibilities, confident in the knowledge that they would never be alone again. As we conclude this incredible journey of love, courage, and resilience, we've witnessed how facing the past and embracing the truth can lead to profound healing and unbreakable bonds. Alejandro and Esperanza's story is a testament to the power of family, the importance of honesty, and the strength found in unity. So what have you learned from their journey? We invite you to reflect on one key lesson from their story that resonates with you and share how you plan to incorporate it into your own life. Please leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, please leave your comment below. And don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to our YouTube channel for more inspiring stories and content. Thank you for watching.